Hello and welcome to Make Decisions Better, Make Better Decisions. I'm so glad that you decided to be here, whether you're here live or watching the recording. I'm glad that's a better decision that you made. As you're getting settled in, I invite you to think about what are the kinds of decisions that might trip you up or give you difficulty? Because most people don't have trouble with every decision. So if I asked my husband, would you like to watch a movie and order pizza? He'd probably decide to pick up the phone and order delivery and be on the couch before I even finished the sentence. But some of us have difficulty with other decisions. And so noticing what are the kinds of decisions that we overthink, that we second guess, that keep us laying awake at night. Is it about career? Is it about money? Is it about family? And as we're getting settled in, here's the invitation. If you can, turn off your phone and silence all of the notifications that are going to ping and ding and pop up on your laptop. Give yourself the opportunity to really just focus on you and yourself and your needs for our time together. If you can, I invite you to participate in the full session. You'll get the most out of it if you can. I know life is messy. And so if you need to watch part of it and jump off, everyone will get the replay. So you can always pick back up where you left off. You're welcome to watch today with your camera turned off if you like, so you can focus more on yourself. And I invite you to participate in the chat if you like. Um, I just ask that you don't do that during the exercises, and that's so that you can really focus on your experience and so you don't pull someone out of theirs. But the rest of the time, absolutely pop in with questions, ask me to clarify, share your experience with what we're talking about. I'd love to have it be more of a conversation. So let's dive in. But first of all, who am I to talk to you about decisions? So, first of all, I'm a certified experienced coach. I have training in two styles of coaching. One comes from CTI, another comes from the Ethical Coaching Collective. I'll be pulling tools out of my tool belt from both of those today. I'm also a person who tends to overthink and ruminate myself. So I know this particular kind of difficulty. And so I'm here to help you both as a coach and as someone who's tried to figure out what works for myself. Let's talk about first what makes it so hard to make those kinds of decisions that trip you up. So, this first bucket that you're going to see on screen, I would label these all as different names for fear. We're afraid we're going to get it wrong or it's not going to turn out how we hope. And so we overthink and we ruminate and we do endless research and we committee things to death. And then once we finally do decide, then we second guess and doubt ourselves. It's all around that fear that we haven't made the perfect decision. And another flavor of fear that I hear coming up is fear of wanting what we really know we want. So the decision is in there. I want this new job. I want this whatever, but I don't feel like I deserve it. Or if I ask for the thing that I've decided I want, people will let me down. Or the last time I allowed myself to really want, it broke my heart. And so I don't want to do that. And so we end up then papering that over as I can't decide. You've decided, but the decision itself hurts or scares you. And then sometimes we are just overwhelmed and tired. And that can be physical fatigue or it can be mental fatigue. And you're just out of brain space to be able to make that decision. And I mean, that's real. We see that a decision that should be hard just fritzes your brain out because your capacity's over. And so if you think of like when you've got too many tabs open on your computer, which is something I do all the time, the whole thing runs slower. Your brain is just like that. And so when you're overwhelmed, something that shouldn't be hard might be. Let's jump into a few techniques that might help you make decisions better. Now, I'm going to show you multiple things you can try. Some of these might work better for you. Some might work better for different kinds of choice of decisions that you need to make. So I'll give you kind of a menu. And ironically, you might need to decide what's going to help you decide. The first thing we're going to do, and for those of you who've ever been on a single one of my webinars, you've heard me talk about the power of deep breathing. So here's what we'll do. We'll breathe in for a count of 4. We'll hold it for a count of 7. We'll exhale for a count of 8. So exhale takes twice as long as the inhale. We'll do that for 30 seconds or a minute. And while we're doing it, we're going to, in particular, focus on softening the jaw and the tongue. When you feel stressed, you probably clench or tighten. So we send some relaxation to the back of the jaw and tongue. Why are we talking about deep breathing on a webinar that's about decision making? Because when you are in fight or flight, when your nervous system is activated, you are going to not make your best choices. So think about you are standing there getting ready to cross the street and you have to quickly jump back because you almost got hit by a bus or a speeding car. Is that the moment when you'd like to stop and ponder traffic laws and the role of the automobile in pedestrian society? Or do you just want to get out of the way so you don't get flattened? So when you are in fight or flight, your body shuts down all of the non-essential functions, and that includes strategic thinking, long-term thinking, so that you can narrow in and focus on immediate survival. So if you do this long exhale, deep breathing, and help to get into a calmer state, what's sometimes known as rest and digest, then you regain access to your strategic thinking. So before you make any choice, any of these other techniques, I recommend that the first thing you do is, let's practice it. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Softening that nervous system is going to make every decision a little bit easier. Once you've done that, you might try shifting your perspective. So, for example, talk about your decision in the third person instead of laying awake at night at 3 in the morning saying, am I going to take that job? Am I going to relocate? I might say, is Colleen best served by moving? What are the pros and cons if Colleen decides to move from New York back to Michigan? You might also distance yourself a little bit by imagining, what would I tell a friend who is facing this same decision? So if we can get a little bit of distance instead of being stuck in it's me and it's I and it's my emotional response. Think about any time a friend has been dating that terrible person and everyone around them can see it except them. That distance can help you notice what's right. What would you tell someone you admire? I'm sorry, what would someone you admire decide? So, someone whose morals or values you admire, someone who's a rock star at work or in your industry. What would they do? It's another way of getting a little bit of distance. And now for some reason, my PowerPoint's going to pop back up. How might you think about this decision in 5 years? Often we're really in something that's vexing us. But if we think about how much will this matter a month from now, a year from now, 5 years from now, we might realize it doesn't matter at all, but we might also have a different view when we take that sort of long game perspective. And instead of being stuck in the perspective of what's the right decision or what's the best choice, how would that decision feel if you've made that choice about, am I going to take the job? Am I going to move? Am I going to marry this person, break up with this person? Am I going to make this health choice? If I make the right choice, will I feel calm? Will I feel inspired and energized? Imagine the feeling of getting it right. See if you can reverse engineer from there. And also try getting the perspective of, why does this even matter? Sometimes we can get hung up in ruminating on something just because it's in front of us, but it might also be really important to your values, and checking in with why it matters might help you make the decision that's aligned with why it matters. Okay? So it's all about thinking about a different perspective to maybe see if you can get some clarity. So, what if making the decision wasn't about having to get it right, but about trial and error? And you start out with any science experiment by noticing the information you do have and maybe making a list of the things you don't know yet. There's also the unknown unknowns, as Rumsfeld taught us, but you start out with any experiment saying, I don't have all the information yet. And then what do you do next? You make a hypothesis that's based on what you do know to maybe try and test into what you don't. If you go into it thinking of it as an opportunity to gather data, there's no right or wrong because it's all educational. It all informs gathering more information. If you decide ahead of time what success and failure look like, then it's kind of neutral when you gather that data. Okay, so I tried to go out on a date with that person and we didn't click. That's what failure looks like. But I'm being neutral about that. And then we want to take the smallest possible action in order to start to get some results. You don't need to get all the way to, I'm going to get my master's degree and then I'm going to start my business based on this career shift. And then I hope to make $100,000. And then. What's the smallest possible action? Is it Googling to find out if you might find a program you'd want to apply to and what you'd need to do to apply? Smallest possible action to start to get some of that mad scientist experiment going. So there's no such thing as a perfect one size fits all outcome. And because of that, we need to rank our decision and the possible outcomes based on our wants, our needs, our values. So for each option that you might be considering, try and figure out what the possible outcome would be. This also recognizes that you can't predict the future. So to the best of your ability, what might happen if you make that choice? And what's the likelihood of that outcome? Is there one that's a 1 in a million and one that's pretty likely? So try and come up with what's the likelihood, what's the percentage? Rank your preference for each outcome. I'd like it best if I got that job. I'd like it best if I got into that graduate program. I'd like it least if I got fired and they didn't give me a severance package and I had to look for temp work. Consider your role in influencing the outcome. So often we really focus on these first parts, so on the making the decision, and less on making the decision work. So once I've decided to take the job, what am I going to do to make myself successful and happy and set myself up to get promoted? What do I do after the decision so that I will live that decision in a way that it feels like a success? And so, in ranking your preference for each outcome, think about how much of that is external and how much of that is stuff that you control the levers of how it'll go. I love this one about making a better menu. So when I'm stressed out, when I'm tired, when I'm anxious, when I'm tired, anything, I have a really difficult time thinking of what will make me happier. I can't think of activities I will enjoy. I can't think of foods I will enjoy because my brain is sort of full. So I do it in advance. I make a list of these are the things that bring me joy. So I can look at it if I'm having a blue day. We've got a list hanging on our refrigerator of favorite meals that we like to make. So if it's 6 o'clock and we're hungry, we can glance at the list if we haven't given it any thought yet. So try to anticipate the moments when you have a difficult time making decisions and make a list ahead of time that might help. These are the ways that I like to work out. These are the people I'd like to stay in touch with. And every week I'd like to make sure that I send a text to all of them or call 5 of them. In this idea of making a better menu, sometimes our brain, in an effort to make life feel more manageable, it'll narrow in on sort of making things seem like a binary that aren't. So if you're ruminating and discussing and debating A and B, try and make a better menu. See if you can expand out. Maybe the answer to your decision is a mashup of A and B that's C, D, E, or F. Part of the way to do that is think about what's the very safest alternative? What's the most far-fetched alternative? What's the silliest? What's the dumbest alternative? What is your dream alternative? If you start to make this list, if you start to make a menu that goes well beyond A and B, you may find that your brain gets out of choosing mode and goes back into problem solving mode, which can often feel different. You may realize you're not trapped just between those two. And then this is one that really works for me. When John and I started dating, and I would sit and fret about something, he would ask me, "What are you afraid of? What's the worst that could happen?" And I realized that often I didn't even know what that was. I didn't know what I was afraid of. I just knew I was kind of generically afraid. So naming, if you choose quote unquote wrong, what's the worst that could happen? Really name that. And once you know that, then ask yourself, if that worst case scenario happened, how could you deal with it? So I'm afraid I'm going to make the wrong choice at work and then I'm going to get fired. And then what? Do you have a good resume, a good network? Could you find another job? And if you choose wrong, do you have the opportunity to correct course? Very few choices are irreversible. So if that worst case scenario happens, could you somehow adjust? So I'll pause here. I know I just threw a lot at you. I lived in New York for 20 years, so I'm still a fast talker. If anyone has any questions, if you want me to go back over something before I move on, feel free to drop it in the chat. I'm happy to clarify. Okay, then I'm going to go ahead and proceed. So let's try a few visualizations together, and this will help if you think of a decision that you've had difficulty with. It can be something that you're facing right now, or it could be a big one that you recall from your past, but try and be specific if you can. My guess is you've spent a lot of time thinking about that choice. Our culture teaches us that intellectual rigor and analysis are highly valued in making smart choices. Being too emotional, by contrast, is presented as being weak or volatile, or dare I say, feminine. I've recently moved back to Southeast Michigan. This is the part of the US that was built on making cars. So let me share a car metaphor with you. If you're only using your brain to make your decisions, it's like you're driving only looking out your windshield. If you aren't checking your mirrors, if you aren't looking at your dashboard, if you aren't sometimes turning around to look backwards, there's a lot of additional data that you're missing out on that could help you make better decisions. And in answer to a question that just came up in the chat, when it's emotional, that's good information. Let's take that on board. Let's notice if something's making you tear up, that's often an indication that this is important or that there's something big that's connected to making this decision. So let's honor that. Let's bring that into making the choice. So let's tap into your body and your intuition and your emotions to get those additional data points to help you with your decision making. So one visualization that I love that's really quick and easy is imagine that you've already decided. So it's 5 minutes after you've accepted the job. You just called them, you said, yes, I'd love to take the job. I'm looking forward to starting with you. Or it's 5 minutes later and you've called them and said, thanks so much for the offer. I'm going to have to pass. How does your body feel when you try both of those on? What do you notice? When I've done this, when I've been stuck in rumination, it is shocking to me. My body already knows what I want, but my brain hasn't caught up yet. And then looking at this question from different points in time can also help you tap into your body. So let's try a few of these together. So the invitation, if you'd like, is to get comfortable and close your eyes. You don't have to, but if that helps you focus, that helps you relax, listen to my instructions and allow your mind to go wherever it takes you. There's no wrong way to do a visualization. Whatever happens for you is exactly right. So go ahead, settle in, take a nice big deep breath in, and slowly exhale. At your own pace, take another nice big deep breath in. And slowly exhale. I invite you to imagine that there is a long staircase in front of you. You're going to take 10 steps slowly and deliberately on that staircase, taking long, slow, comfortable breaths as you take each step down or up, whichever direction it goes. Let's take those steps together. So, stepping onto the first step and the second and the third. Each step you take, you're getting more comfortable and more relaxed. Step onto that fourth and fifth and sixth. Settling, relaxing, feeling perfectly safe and at ease. We'll take those remaining steps down that 7, 8, 9, and 10. And once you've arrived at the end of this staircase, out in front of you, you see a timeline. However it looks is exactly right. At one end of that timeline is your life in the past, all the way back to your birth. In the other direction is your future, all the way out to your end of your time on earth. I invite you to fly backwards to a point in your past that has everything to do with making this decision. Everything to do with what informs the choice you're making now. Notice what's going on in that situation. Where are you? Who are you with? What's happening? Maybe even notice how it smells, how it feels. What information is in this scene that informs the choice of your present? And now fly up and out to a point in your future when you've made just the right choice for you. You've made a choice that leads to the outcome that suits your wants, your needs, your values and priorities. It's all happening exactly as you'd hope. What's in that scene in your future? What do you notice? Where are you? Who are you with? How does it feel to have made that choice? How does that good outcome feel? And from that point in the future, if you sort of look back over your shoulder, what's one choice that you made that got you here? What's one action you took that got you here? Now, together, let's fly back to the present and let's check in with your body. Often we act like the only way of knowing, the only way of problem solving is our gray matter. We act like we are a brain walking around on a broomstick, and we ignore everything from the neck down. So I invite you to check in with your belly. There is a reason we have phrases like gut instinct. Your gut is so smart. It knows so much. What does your gut want you to know about this decision? What's it trying to tell you? And then come up just a little bit and ask your heart, what's the wisdom that's in your heart about this choice, about your path forward? What's your heart know about what's right for you? And as you listen to your gut and your heart, is there anything that your brain would like to say in response? How would your brain like to join this conversation? And when you're ready, I invite you to wiggle your fingers, wiggle your toes. I sometimes like to roll my shoulders, have a nice stretch as I open my eyes. Come back to our webinar together as we're closing out. We're pretty much at time, and I want to be respectful of your time. So let me do this. So first, if you want more help making better decisions, I'm available to work with you one-on-one. We can go deeper on your particular needs, on your values, what's right for you. So I love to do free, no pressure discovery calls. I'm sort of the opposite of high pressure. I only like to work with people I feel confident I can serve. So if you'd like to talk to me about whether I can help, I'm available. And if you liked this session, I've got another one coming up in July. That one will talk about how to make better habits. So we'll talk about how you make and break habits and how we can make it easier to do what you want and harder to do what you don't want so that you aren't making your willpower do more work than it needs to. And I'll send you the link to register for that when I send you the replay for today. Mindful that it's already a little bit past 1:30. If you need to go, thank you so much for joining. If you have any questions, though, I'm available for a few more minutes. So if there's anything you'd like to pop in the chat, I'm happy to answer those. I see there was a question about how many rounds of deep breathing. So I like to start with 30 seconds or a minute. But honestly, sometimes you'll notice you feel better after just doing 3 rounds. So really pay attention to when are you feeling a little softening? When are you feeling that zzz in your brain maybe start to slow down? What's right for you when you're facing a big decision might be different than when you're just stressing out about what am I going to wear to this work function or what should I make for dinner? Great question. And again, I'll just reinforce on this other question that making decisions often is emotional. And if we're treating it like it's a purely intellectual decision, that's part of what trips us up. So pay attention to your brain. Also pay attention to what's happening in your nervous system, in your body, in your emotions. It's, if you think of it all as your board of directors, it's all got a voice in what's going to end up feeling like the right decision for you. So thanks so much for joining. I'm really glad to have had you here. I hope this helps. I'd love for you to drop me an email and let me know which of these techniques helped you. Did you find your way to a better decision? Did you make a decision faster? Something where you'd really been stuck? My email's there. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks so much.